It came from the unlikeliest of places.
America kind of looked for us like another planet. We didn't have any bad feeling about it, but it was totally alien, you know?
He came to realize he'd found a gold mine. What he didn't realize was that he'd found a haunted gold mine.
And caused a puzzling international stir.
Here I am. They're saying I'm a pirate because they never gave those rights out.
It was a game that was developed behind the Iron Curtain. It was unique and new, and we were dealing with Glasnost and Gorbachev.
I'm in Soviet Union. They could just keep me here forever and send me to Siberia, you know. Who the hell knows what was going to happen? I certainly didn't.
While addicting gamers and non-gamers alike.
Tetris got to be the ultimate every-person game. I mean, that's a game that your grandmother can pick up and start playing.
It's a big achievement to create something which, you know, is known everywhere in the world. It's like everybody knows what is an Egyptian pyramid and everybody knows what is a Tetris.
This is the story of the most popular puzzle game of all time, Tetris. During the 1960s and 70s, at the height of the Cold War,
At the time, the United States and the Soviet Union were the two powers in the world. You had two nations with two armies, and the sole existence of their armies were simply to annihilate each other.
Alexei Pajitnov grows up in the city of Moscow.
Didn't look anything like American cities. No advertisement. Very, very modest kind of showcase. Everything made out of stone, more or less gray, without any bright colors at all. America kind of looked for us like another planet. We didn't have any bad feeling about it, but it was totally alien, you know? So we just knew very well our life, but didn't care about the life of the rest of the world.
What Pajitnov does care about, however, is his passion for math and puzzles at an early age.
I like all the mathematical puzzles and all the mathematics, and it was my kind of passion in school. And then I get to the special program, to the mathematical class, and I graduate the special mathematical school.
After his university studies in 1979, Pajitnov is hired by the Computer Center of the Moscow Academy of Science.
And I was just a regular, researcher there. Wrote some software for artificial intelligence, automatic speech recognition, CAD/CAM system, all kind of stuff. But I still kept my passion and love to all small puzzles and games which I had since I was a schoolboy. So every time when I had excuse to kind of study new hardware or get new software, I always try to put some kind of game or puzzle on the computer.
Alexei's early work is done on the Electronica 60, a Soviet terminal computer which predated the IBM PC. During his free time, he develops a computerized version of the Pentomino's puzzle game.
In his spare time, didn't even get paid for it. Alexei Pajitnov, he just made a fun puzzle game while he was working in Russia.
And at one moment, I had the idea to put the Pentomino puzzle on the computer. Pentomino's is a very, very well-known puzzle, and I love this puzzle.
With the help of a 16-year-old programmer, Pajitnov finishes the game and calls it Tetris.
We really didn't understand where Alexei had gotten the name Tetris, and later really found out that tetra means four in Russian. So all the squares were like a little T or an L, but they all contained 4 blocks. So that was tetra. And when we met Alexei, we said, why Tetris? And he said, well, the only other game he really liked was tennis. So he took the IS off the end of tennis and made it Tetris. And so that's where he came up with Tetris.
Tetris is distributed freely among Pajitnov's comrades at the Computer Center.
Because there was no any software market around, and the only way to distribute software was just to give it for copy. That's what we did.
And the game quickly spreads throughout Moscow.
And we let it go. That was like a fire, like a forest fire. Because in 2 weeks, every computer, every PC in Moscow runs Tetris on it.
This is one of the games that entertains you. If you had, like a busy day and you're back from the office, very tired, it's a game that you can play for 5 minutes, for 30 minutes, or even for 50. Just as long as you want to.
I think why this game became so popular is probably, well, as everything in life, is a combination of good idea, luck, and maybe good timing.
I didn't feel very good about my game because many people playing instead of working. And my bosses in computer center, well, they weren't upset, but they kind of look at me like, like a small kid which do something not very appropriate,
The popularity of Tetris soon catches on beyond the Soviet border.
In 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we start receiving computers, the clone of PC computers from Bulgaria, from the other country, with Tetris on the hard drives. So the game step over the borders.
And captures the attention of a visiting entrepreneur named Robert Stein in 1986.
Robert Stein has his own company called Andromeda Software. He did work with his former colleagues in Hungary, and probably they show him this game, and he was very interested.
Robert Stein has got to be considered one of the unfortunate victims of video games.
He got and put many people in a lot of trouble.
And the simple game of falling blocks soon finds itself in a complex situation. Immediately after Tetris first catches his eyes, Robert Stein introduces the game to prospective game publishers.
In the case of Tetris, he came to realize he'd found a gold mine. What he didn't realize was that he'd found a haunted gold mine.
Stein flies to Russia to secure the rights to Tetris from Alexei Pajitnov.
To a certain degree, in the computer game business, it was still a fairly naive business. A lot of business done in the late 80s, in what was still a very immature business, barely over 10 years old, was contracts written on a napkin or a handshake.
In 1986, Spectrum Holobyte's Gilman Louie and Phil Adams see a demo of the game and immediately strike a deal with Stein.
There'd never really been a product released that had been developed in the Soviet Union, so we wanted to make sure we got the proper rights to the proper people, and we emphasized that to Robert Stein, and he is certainly intimated that he had the ability to give those particular rights.
First of all, Stein pretend that I already agree on everything by replying him.
I'm not sure what Stein could have done to save everything. Clearly he was overextending himself. He was promising people that he had all the rights even before he did have them, and that was a problem.
Unaware that the rights were not secured by Stein, Spectrum Holobyte releases the game for the PC in 1988.
It was a novelty. It was unique and new, and we were dealing with Glasnost and Gorbachev and Reagan and that whole time period.
Elorg, the Ministry for Import and Export, eventually takes over Tetris negotiations that same year.
Elorg at that time was kind of typical Soviet organization because they have a contact with foreigners and foreign companies and everything. I'm pretty sure that they had a very strong KGB influence.
But Elorg was this ministry that dealt with exportation. The guys at Elorg were hard hitters. To this day, if you go to the Elorg building in Moscow, there's a big gate in front of it, and people warn you that you're getting photographed if you go to that gate. It was a big, shady organization, and the rumor always was that the people at the head of it were KGB. I don't know whether that's true or not, but what I do know is it was very secretive.
And the trouble was just beginning.
It was at one of those early CESs in January in Las Vegas that Gilman and I showed the product for the first time to Hank Rogers. That's kind of how the whole thing started.
I played it and played it and played it until I put the high score on. I couldn't stop playing it. Tetris just kept me coming back. I kept coming back and playing more, and so that's when I got hooked on it.
Fascinated by the game, Rogers approaches Gilman Louie of Spectrum Holobyte for rights to license the game in Japan.
If you license a product from somebody, you rely on them to indemnify you and say that they have the rights. So he said he had the rights, and that was good enough for me.
Gilman and I then went to Japan because we knew of Hank's interest. We met with Hank and really kind of consummated a deal for him to do a Japanese version of the product on PC as well as a Nintendo version. Hank also wanted to do it in the United States and was interested in coin-op. And when we kind of called and talked to Microsoft about that, they said, look, we have a deal already in the works with Atari/Tengen.
What Spectrum Holobyte doesn't know is that their sister company, Mirrorsoft, has already sold the rights for a Japanese version of Tetris to Tengen.
I said, who the hell's Tengen? They have no share. They don't even exist in Japan. He says, yes, they traded Tetris for blasteroids. And I said, blasteroid? That sounds like a disease. I said, well, Gilman, you're just going to have to go back and talk to them because we have a deal.
Unsatisfied with only the PC rights, an undeterred Rogers approaches Tengen for the console rights in Japan.
I told my guys in Japan, I said, okay, I'm going to the States. You guys keep on working. I'm not coming back until I have those rights. What I didn't know is the rest of the story. And the rest of the story is that, in fact, they didn't have those rights. They didn't have the rights that they licensed me, or they didn't have the rights that they thought they got from Mirrorsoft.
Despite this, Tetris launches for the Famicom in December of 1988. Word of mouth slowly spreads in homes and offices everywhere.
End of January, everybody was sold out everywhere. We ended up selling 2 million of that particular product in Japan over about a year.
Driven by the success of Tetris on the Famicom, Rogers tries to obtain handheld rights for the game on Nintendo's new portable system, the Game Boy.
When I looked at all the contracts, none of the contracts included handheld rights. So I went as far upstream as I could go, which was Robert Stein. The problem that he was having is that he had never properly gotten the deals for the rights that he already had, or that he'd given to Mirrorsoft. And so he had to clean that up, and the Russians were running him through the ringer saying, unless we clean this up, we're not giving you any new rights.
When the Tetris rights were negotiated, we were part of a Maxwell Corporation and Mirrorsoft. So Mirrorsoft actually signed the contract with Robert Stein. Kevin Maxwell, who was one of the Maxwell sons, eventually went back over to the Soviet Union to kind of do a more conclusive deal at that point from a rights standpoint.
A scramble for Tetris rights ensues as Hank Rogers, Robert Stein, and Kevin Maxwell of Mirrorsoft coincidentally fly to Moscow at the same time.
I got on the next plane to Moscow. I went to track down the Russian agency or the Soviet agency that has the rights to Tetris.
Hank then went to Russia on his own and tracked down Alexei.
That was a total adventure game. I was there and didn't know anything, and I just asking people in the hotel or information or whatever to try to find out this. In Russia or in the Soviet Union, nobody gives you information. It was a very, very strange place.
That's where the confusion came in of what rights had the Soviet Union granted to Stein, who then granted those to us. Maxwell went in and tried to tie up the rights. And I think Hank was playing with something that he knew was bigger.
I was having meetings with the Russians, and then they were having meetings with the Russians. We were all taking turns having meetings. And he says, well, why should we choose you over Kevin Maxwell? I said, well, I'm not somebody from a very rich family, and I don't have a huge amount of money behind me. So I can't make an offer that as big as the offer that he can make you, but I can give you an honest share of the money.
The Russians decide to give handheld rights to Hank Rogers.
Oh, it was absolutely high adventure. It was great. Sitting in a room with a bunch of Russians giving me the third degrees.
However, the controversy continues after the Russians see a copy of Tetris for the Famicom.
I said, this is my game in Japan. They said, well, we never licensed those rights to anybody. I said, oh my God, here I am. They're saying I'm a pirate because they never gave those rights out. And I'm in Soviet Union. They could just keep me here forever and send me to Siberia, you know. Who the hell knows what was going to happen? I certainly didn't.
Rogers soon discovers that Mirrorsoft and Tengen do not have the rights for the console version of Tetris.
Well, at the end of the week, they're saying, you know, Mr. Rogers, so would you like to license from us the console rights? And I said, hot potato. I knew for a fact that Atari was a huge litigious company. So I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a huge lawsuit. If I now go license the rights behind their back, how they'll interpret it. There's no way I can do this. I cannot fight this fight. So I need an ally.
And the ally he finds is none other than Nintendo. By By 1989, console rights to Tetris are up for grabs. With Hank Rogers, Robert Stein, and Kevin Maxwell in Moscow vying for control, Rogers approaches game giant Nintendo for help.
Well, at this time, Hank didn't feel that he could afford the war, but he brought Nintendo for next visit.
A month later, I was in Moscow with Mr. Arakawa and Howard Lincoln, and they were doing a deal.
Angered by what they think is double dealing, Mirrorsoft owner Robert Maxwell steps in and enlists the aid of Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev.
So they were buddies, and so when Gorbachev went to England to visit whatever, he had a meeting scheduled with Robert Maxwell. At this meeting, Maxwell was going to say, my son went to Moscow to get the Tetris rights, and some upstart from Japan got the rights instead. Do something about it. So he was going to apply the pressure, but we were saved by an earthquake in Armenia, and Gorbachev had to cut his trip short. So he never had that meeting with Maxwell. So there was a little bit of divine intervention that happened there.
Nintendo eventually secures the rights and battles Tengen in court.
These companies hated each other. They just did. So when it came to Tetris, Tengen was all about challenging Nintendo's hold on it.
They get into it in court in San Francisco. They're in court not only for that lawsuit, but for patent infringement and copyright infringement. And now they are saying, okay, well, you don't have the right to sell this game.
They had created several 100,000 copies that I don't believe ever got distributed or got distributed for just a few days.
As far as I know, some of the Tengen cartridges did get out to the market, but most of them ended up as landfill.
After the dust settles, Tetris fever continues to spread around the world, selling about 3 million copies on the NES in 1989.
Tetris got to be the ultimate every-person game. And that's the game that your grandmother can pick up and start playing. And I think that's what made Tetris really the game that it is today.
In 1989, Tetris is bundled with the Game Boy, putting Tetris in the hands of eager players everywhere.
I convinced Mr. Arakawa that Tetris should be the game packed in with Game Boy, because everybody can play Tetris, and so they were smart about it and included Tetris. We sold over 30 million Tetris that way on Game Boy.
It just went to a much broader, wider mass media market when it hit the Game Boy. The Game Boy brought it to a whole new crowd.
Tetris became a household item.
Looking to capitalize on the heels of Tetris's success, multiple sequels and offshoots spawned.
There was Wordtris. There was Hatris. Probably the best Tetris look-alike, my favorite Tetris, was from Capcom. It was Super Puzzle Fighter. Ripping off Tetris became a thing of magic. Tetris became a genre unto itself. Maybe the most significant Tetris ripoff was Dr. Mario.
Tetris sells over 65 million units worldwide. Yet creator Alexei Pajitnov sees little of the early profits.
Unfortunately, at the time when they were able to give some bonuses, I was out of computer center. And lots of people in computer center got some kind of goods like refrigerators, kind of microwaves and whatever.
So he didn't get anything, and that bothered me. That really bothered me, because I come from doing business here, and if somebody creates an intellectual property, they should benefit somehow.
As the old Soviet Union collapses, Pajitnov eventually moves to the U.S.
I brought him to the States, got him his green card, and he worked for me. Now he works for Microsoft. He's got his citizenship. The rights reverted back to him in 1996. So this is the big change that happened. In 1996, all rights to Tetris were supposed to revert back to Alexei Pajitnov.
In addition to his Tetris titles, Pajitnov continues to design puzzle games at Microsoft.
Michael Jordan probably is a pretty good baseball player, seriously. But he was so good at basketball that no one will ever notice that. Alexei Pajitnov has done good games since Tetris.
I worked on the very big title, which was very important for my internal kind of growing up. That was the title called Pandora's Box.
Pandora's Box was a really wonderful game. No one will ever notice because Tetris was so amazing. Tetris was the all-consuming game.
Hectic And Mozaki Blocks are his latest releases for MSN Games, a casual online gaming site.
Hexik is traditional puzzle game when you have hexagon pieces and you kind of rotate them trying to put together some kind of blocks. And the other game is Mozaki Blocks. And the game is very relaxing.
To date, Tetris remains one of the best-selling and most played games. It is on over 60 platforms with no end in sight.
Tetris is in a wonderful position with mobile games because Tetris is perfect for mobile games. It's a very simple game.
Tetris is the #1 game on mobile phones in North America.
And its status only continues to grow.
Sometimes I read science fiction or some novels. They use the word Tetris. It's a normal Russian word now. That's something I should be proud of.
It's a big achievement to create something which, is known everywhere in the world. Everybody knows what is an Egyptian pyramid, and everybody knows what is a Tetris.
It's a part of the history. It's definitely part of our industry. I think it will still live and live, and I'm very glad of it.
It all started with Easter eggs. Before you know it, I couldn't get enough of God mode.
When I don't punch him in, I get a little weak.
I thought you were supposed to go backwards in Pitfall. I can't even make it through 2 levels without infinite ammo.
I can't remember a time when I didn't use codes.
They made up the codes. I just used them.
No one's gonna find out.
Get the latest cheat codes and walkthrough strategies for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Write the homie to see if you got what it takes.
Cheat season premiere, Tuesday night at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific.